we're looking at 7.4 special right triangles. So we've talked about the Pythagorean theorem, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. We've talked about similar triangles, and now we're talking about special right triangles. Special right triangles are if they're a 45, 45, 90 triangle or a 30, 60, 90 triangle. A 45, 45, 90 triangle says that the hypotenuse is the square root 2 times as long as the legs. Where a 30, 60, 90 says that the hypotenuse is twice as long as the shorter leg and the longer is square root 3 times as big. So, let's look at this. We've got two pictures here. And we are going to label them. Okay? First, we've got this picture of a triangle, and we're going to label it a 45, 45, 90. Okay? Ooh, that's really hard to read. We're going to label that a 45, 45, 90. And if I'm telling you that the legs are x, and both the legs would be the same because of what? What do we call it when we have two angles are the same, so we have their two sides are the same? Base angle theorem. Very nice. If the base angles are the same, the sides are the same. Everybody needs to be writing this down right now. I'm not sure why we're not. Okay. That means that the hypotenuse is square root of 2 as big. So we're simply multiplying whatever the sides are by square root of 2. What if we knew what the hypotenuse was? How would we find the legs? We would, instead of multiplying, we divide by the square root of 2. Okay? And we'll do some problems just like that. So let's look at a 30, 60, 90.
That was it.
That was it. This is just the instructions, and then we're going to do problems just like that. Okay, so now we're going to look at a 30, 60, 90. All right, I can't make this longer, so. We have a 30, a 60, and a 90. I want you to notice that this is an equilateral triangle cut in half. Equilaterals all have 60 sides, 60-degree angles. So if we cut it in half, we become 30 on one hand, right? If we cut it in half perfectly, we cut it at a 90-degree angle. Okay, so then if the shortest side, which the shortest side would be across from which angle? 30, 60, or 90?
60.
30, you guys, 30. It's always across from the smallest angle. That's my x, that's my starting value. And then your hypotenuse is 2 times this. And then it gets a little funky with that longest side. That second longest side is x square root 3. Okay. X square root 3 is big. Now we're going to need to use these rules to do the back page. So you might have to flip back and forth some. Okay. All right. So let's look at example 2. Let me just move this around so we have a little more room. One second, please. Okay. If I have a triangle with these little funky lines, what does that mean? That those two sides are the
Same.
same. If both these sides are the same, that means both these angles are the same. And they would have to be 45 degrees, right? If the interior angles of a triangle add up to be 180. 180, take away the 90 degree, gives us 90. If they're both the same, we just have to divide by 2 and get 2 45s. All right, what would x be if the side is 42? Now, you might have to flip back over. Which one are we talking about, the first triangle or the second one? the first one. And so my hypotenuse would be 42 square root 2. Do you have any questions about that? All we did was multiply it by the square root of 2. It says it wants it written in the simplest radical form, so we just leave it just like this. We're done. Okay, let's talk about B. It's another 45, 45, 90 triangle. We've got this little 45 in the corner. Okay? So 18 is my hypotenuse. So I want to find out what y is. So if I look back at the front of my paper where it says x square root of 2 is the hypotenuse. So if I have 18 equals x square root of 2, what would I do to get this x by itself? Yes, Chris? It's being multiplied, so you want to divide. Divide by the square root of 2. Okay? Can we have 18 square root of 2? So what do I have to do to get rid of that square root of 2? Multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 2. I get 18 square root of 2 over 2. Now, can we simplify this anymore? How many times does 2 go into 18? 9, so we get 9 square root of 2. So who did I lose? Should I do this one again?
Yep. You lost me in the part where you added 2 at the bottom.
Okay, so if we're dividing by the square root of 2, right? These cancel out and we're left with x by itself. We got that far, right? So we can't have the square root of 2 on the bottom. It's against the rules to have a radical on the bottom of a fraction. If you multiply both of them by the square root of 2, 18 times the square root of 2 is simply 18 square root of 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and what's the square root of 4? So I did skip a step there. We get 2. And then we simply are dividing. Okay. Now I'm going to go on and do a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Do I have another question about this one before I go? Okay. Let's do a 30, 60, 90 then. This is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So am I talking about the top one here or the bottom one? Bottom. Bottom. Okay. Do I have the smallest side? Is it across from the 30-degree angle? Yes, I've got 14. It's across from the... So how do I find out what x is? Now let's look. Let's look back. What does it say on my picture? It says multiply it by the square root of 3. So let's do that. 14 times the square root of 3. That's it. If I had wanted to find the hypotenuse instead, what would I do to 14? Times it by 2. It's a 30, 60, 90. Let's do another 30, 60, 91. Let's go to D. D says y, and we have 6 square roots. No, I have this one. There we go. And there's all kinds of stuff that pop up on this new thing, isn't there? Weird. Okay. So I am on D. It has a little 30 in here and a little 60 in here. I don't know why it's not showing up on mine. Okay. Do I have the smallest side?
Yes.
So we look at the 30 degrees. What's across from it? 5. Okay. So how am I going to find, let's find x first. So look over at your other side of your paper. What do I do to find the hypotenuse? What does it say to do?
5
Times it by 2. So I get 10. Okay, what does it say to get the second longest side, the y? X times the square root of 3. So what is my x? My x is? That's my x, but it doesn't really say x. It says the smallest side. It's the smallest side times the square root of 3. So it's 5 square root of 3. I can totally see how you guys got that confused. Because whenever we try to find the hypotenuse of a 30, 60, 90 triangle, we take the smallest side and times it by 2. So the smallest side's 5, so we multiply that by 2. Okay, let's do another 30, 60, 90 that looks kind of crazy. Do we have, yeah, let's do F. Let's do F. All right, which one of these is F? F has 15 side. There's F. Okay. So we've got for F, this is 30, this is 60. Okay, this looks really weird because which one is the smallest side of these? X. Which one is the hypotenuse? And then this is the second longest side. Okay. So how would I find the smallest side? The second longest side is 15. So let's look at our paper. I know that if we've got the second longest side, we took whatever the smallest side is and times it by the square root of 3. So we got x square root of 3 gave us 15. So how am I going to get x by itself?
Divide by
Square root of 3. I heard a couple of divide by 3. Remember, it's square root of 3. How do I get rid of this square root of 3 on the bottom? Multiply the square root of 3 by the square root of 3. So I get 15 square root of 3 over 3. Does 3 go into 15?
Yeah.
How many times? 5. Okay. Now, how do I find the hypotenuse? What am I doing to it? I'm multiplying by 2. I multiplied it by 2. I took 5 square root of 3 times it by 2, and that gave me what? I'm going to do one of the area problems. I'm going to do one of the area problems. So I'm moving all the way down to example 3. I'm ignoring the other ones, and I'm doing example 3. Okay. This says that this is 30 degrees right here. So it's a 30, 60, 90, and I have the hypotenuse. How would I find this side over here? The hypotenuse is what of the square of the small side? 2 times x equals the hypotenuse. You guys look at the other side. Right there. Okay. So x would be 5. Now what would the second longest side be? 5 times the square root of 3. How do you find the area of a rectangle? Length times width. So 5 times 5 square root of 3. So get out your calculator. Five times 5 square root 3. 43.3 units.